Hey everyone, just before we get into this next episode, I want to just stress that I am sharing a personal tactic that I used, especially when I was in a state of a lot of fear and experiencing a lot of fear, particularly around my own health and possible early death in life. So it was something that I had to develop when I was working specifically with a somatic therapist. It's something that worked for me. What I want to stress to you is when you are, first and foremost, it's important to learn how to process your emotions in a healthy way for you. The best way to do that is working individually with the proper licensed professional so that you can do that in a really safe manner, particularly if you have experienced any type of trauma. And let me just say personally, I never thought I had trauma in my life, and I obviously did until I was having PTSD nightmares. And my therapist told me that I had, and I was also working with psychiatrists at the time after we discovered this, that I was experiencing PTSD. So I always thought oh, no, I just had some tough times here and there, but I don't have PTSD and I didn't really have trauma. So the nervous system does what the nervous system does. So please make sure that you are getting the proper help, support, because it's going to allow you to live a much healthier, better life. You're going to be much more in touch with yourself. You're going to be much more in touch within the moment and with others. You have deep, better relationships, and you're going to feel like you're able to handle stuff better. So please get the right help that you need. And there are some other resources out there if you don't have a lot of money to spend, because sometimes therapy can cost a lot of money. There are, these other, I know podcasts have been, showing and using BetterHelp and other types of things like that, other types of services like that. They're a little bit more cost friendly and, are also very workable in terms of into your schedule, things like that. And if you don't like a particular therapist, it's very easy for you to change to another one, things like that. So obviously this is not at all sponsored by anybody. And I'm not telling you or recommending any particular services, but I want you only to make sure that you are doing the right thing that you need for your health. And your health physically, yes, eat the right stuff, move the right way, but just as important is your mental and emotional aspect of yourself. And we must address that, because I will tell you through professional experience as well as personal that those are just as important. So let's get into the episode today. Just wanted to make sure to pop in and say that because that is extremely important. All right, take care. Let's get into it. Hey, everybody. I'm doing this video particularly in response to the comments on a post about fear that I did recently in February of 24. Hi, my name is Abigail. I am here to normalize conversations and education about death and dying so we die better at end of life and, things life and death. So let's get into it today. So let me just tell you really briefly about the post that I did on social media. I'm going to go into it a little bit more because I think it warrants delving into it a little bit more. But I did just a very short post on social media on how I personally process fear, especially when it comes to experiences like feelings of powerlessness, loss of control, specifically related to serious illness, death, things like that. And the comments I got, I thought were so interesting enough to where I really wanted to do a video on this. They were such kind of along the lines of, one specifically said, focus on, delve into fearless. And this is not, I want to be very, very clear here. I am not criticizing anybody. I know these come from, all positive and good intentions, I'm assuming. But they were about, focusing on fearless, delving into fearless versus delving into fear, which is what I talked about in my post. And, things like no fear, kind of along those lines. And the one thing I need to say, and I will speak on, I guess to make this hopefully a little less offensive to people, is to speak on my behalf and also based on my experience in hospice and palliative care. But when someone is, dealing with fear, experiencing fear, whatever it may be, or whatever other type of thing that they're experiencing, but especially when you do something like try to have them be focused on being fearless or no fear, that is very dismissive. And I know no one means, I'm assuming nobody, means to be mean here, but that completely dismisses the experience that person is having. I need to normalize this feeling again for people because Fear is normal. Fear is healthy. Fear is your brain trying to protect you. Fear is your brain going, oh my gosh, there's an actual potential threat. I need you to either remove yourself, avoid it somehow. And so among many other things that your nervous system does, feeling fear is actually a very healthy type of reaction to feel. It is a natural reaction and a natural feeling and emotion to have as a human. It's totally natural, totally, expected in our human experience, either every week, day to day, whatever. Can fear be detrimental? Yes, there are cases where fear can, paralyze people from doing anything in their lives, from making decisions, from getting ahead in life. So that is where we take fear and we do make sure we process it. I'll talk to you about that in a moment, but then we feel the fear and we do it anyway. That's when we talk about being courageous, right? So we can feel the fear, but we still go forward, feeling the fear, acknowledging the fear, and just going forward and doing what is fearful for us anyway. Now, don't do things like that are physically dangerous or emotionally, mentally dangerous for you. But when we're talking about finally getting up there and maybe doing the TED Talk you always wanted to do, or just doing that, asking that person something or asking them a person out, or, practicing your language skills in the country that you're visiting, and it can be something small as that. So feeling the fear and doing it anyway, that's being courageous, and that's a wonderful thing that actually helps build confidence, it helps build resilience, things like that. And again, I want to say I'm not an expert in this field, but I am an expert in end of life and death and dying, and so I want to make sure that we touch on this. The video that I posted was specifically about how I processed fear, around illness and dying. And what I was essentially talking about was, especially when I was sick, in years 2020 to the beginning of 2023, I felt a lot of fear. And initially I would go through many days feeling this underlying current of fear. And I knew I was fearful, but I tried to avoid it. But when I tried to avoid it, it always felt like it was right there, and I was trying to avoid it and thinking, when I really thought it through, I thought that if I tried to avoid it, it wouldn't really be there. And that's kind of like a natural thing that we do. We kind of think if we avoid something, it's kind of not there. It's not really real. We don't really have to deal with it, but we do. So I had to learn, through working with a somatic therapist too, that you really do have to process your emotions. If you're not processing your emotions, you're preventing yourself from healing. You're preventing yourself from being as healthy as possible. There's a really, really important, valid reasons why you need to process your emotions. It's what I did, because I knew, even though I was trying to avoid the fear, I still felt it throughout the entire day, and I kept trying to push it away the entire day, and it was exhausting. On top of my physical stuff, it was beyond exhausting. So what I ended up doing, this is just something that I tried, is I ended up scheduling every single day time, usually 15 to 20 minutes, usually in the morning, sometimes at night, where I would set a timer and I would purposely dive into my fears. Dive into the feelings, dive into the worst case scenario that I knew I was already kind of thinking about, but wasn't really aware of it, and really just dive into it and think, what is the worst case scenario? What would that look like? Oh my gosh, what would happen with my life? Da, 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 da. Then when the alarm went off, then I would get up, move around, shake a little bit. That physical transition is actually very healthy. It helps your body and your nervous system to kind of realize, okay, now we're making a transition. And then I would take the same amount of time and then imagine the best case scenario. And I felt I needed to do that because if I'm taking the time to imagine, what the worst case scenario is that I keep playing in my mind already, even though I'm not cognizant of it, I'm going to also dedicate time to imagining the best case scenario. And that for me was really helpful. That helped me get through those days where I just couldn't avoid the fear at all. Avoiding the fear was just not an option for me. I felt it and it was just there and it was very, very real. So this is something that I found very helpful for me, especially when it was just so palpable. And I'd be curious to see if it helps you. I'd be curious to see if you try it or if you found anything else that was really helpful for you when you were dealing with the time of fear in your life. But please, when you're talking with someone who's fearful or if someone's talking to you, please acknowledge this experience. And this goes for everything. It goes for grief. It goes for, all the tough type of emotions, anxiety, fear, all those kinds of things. And also for the good stuff, feeling joy, feeling peace. It's important to recognize, validate, and normalize all these emotions because we all feel the same emotions. What triggers them, what, sets them off can look different, of course, because our lives are all different, but we as humans feel all the same stuff. It's just something that we all share in common and something that makes us human. So, by all means, just acknowledge what you're going through, acknowledge these feelings. Avoiding them is not going to help you. Now, sometimes you need to put them aside when you're dealing with something time sensitive or you're trying to prioritize your safety, things like that. Obviously, when you are, in the middle of a live or die situation, you're going to allow your fear to make you run the other direction, do certain other things, whatever it is to protect yourself. Yeah, right. You're not going to at that point go, let's really delve into this fear more and see what it means and does it have any ties to my past or da. No, you're going to use that fear to mobilize you to where you need to go to keep yourself safe, right? Later, then you can, process it a little bit more in depth when you're safe. But I just don't feel like the fearless, no fear type of sayings are really genuine. I feel like they're dismissive. And if you disagree with me, please, write a comment. I'd really like to see what you think. Again, this is a really normal, healthy thing to experience. To try to dismiss it is not going to allow you to process your emotions in a healthy way. And what you want to do when you have emotions is you want to process them. That's going to keep you healthy. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much for, everything. I really hope that today is filled with a lot of the good stuff that you're looking forward to and hopefully not too much fear. My name's Abigail. I'm here to normalize these conversations and education about death and dying so we die better at end of life and things life and death. I will talk to you soon. Looking forward to it. Take care.